Welcome to the Simply Smart podcast, where automation meets innovation. Each episode dives into real-world strategies, success stories, and expert insights that help you work smarter, not harder. Why do organizations need governance for AI? Part 1.
Hello, and welcome back. This is your host, Trella Stewart, Project Manager for Simply Smart. On today's episode, Matt Gustitis, CEO of Simply Smart, will be joined by the team at UniqueMinds.ai. And they will be discussing the fascinating topic of governance as the best enabler of AI success.
Great, thanks. Hello, everyone. So joining me today to discuss this important topic is Andrea Bartlett, who is the CEO and founder of UniqueMinds.ai. Welcome, Andrea.
Hello.
And also Lalit Verma, CIO of UniqueMinds.ai. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you so much, Matt.
Thank you for being here. So just to kind of start things off, I'm really excited that both of you could join today. And I know that we've known each other for quite some time, Andrea, so excited to kind of dive into these important topics. But maybe just to help with the audience that we have, when we talk about AI, there's a lot of different meanings today. Can you share some examples of what we mean when we talk about AI and what that really means in practical examples?
Yes, absolutely. I'll talk about some use cases for the use of AI today, and then I'll hand it over to Lalit because he can talk to us about the history of AI. But today, what people are super excited about is generative AI. And so when you see things like chatbots that can answer questions for customers, or if you're using a tool like ChatGPT that can create content or can do deep research for you, in those instances, we're talking about this hot topic of generative AI. And because it is generative, it needs to be governed. But there are other types of AI that are important, and I'd like to hand that off to Lalit, who is our Chief AI Officer at Unique Minds.
Yeah, thank you so much, Andrea. And that's an excellent question. So I think let's get started with just defining the bare term, what artificial intelligence is, which are the different classes of it. So it's really to train the computer to do the jobs like we human do. And in procedural programming or in object-oriented programming, the software are developed mostly by understanding the domain requirements and based on that coding it all up. Any changes in response to the requirements have to be recoded up. The new code has to be written or existing code has to be modified. But with generative AI or with traditional AI, which is machine learning models, it includes your traditional statistical modeling or the deep learning models like the convoluted neural networks, recurrent neural networks, adaptive learning, or reinforced learning. Those are the traditional classes into which the machine learning's model fall in broad categories. There are a lot more to that, but let's stick to these more popular one. They look at the pattern in the data, and then you train just like we train our brain to learn any new things. So by learning those patterns, these models remember the information, right? And now you can ask it questions even if your requirements change in future. If the requirement or the answer to those requirements fall within the knowledge base of these trained models, then they are very capable of answering those questions, even making predictions about the future. But let's talk about what you all are dying to hear about, the new kid on the block called the generative AI. These are the pre-trained generative model that are trained on large corpus of text data. And when I say large, it is trillions and trillions of tokens. So it's huge, petabytes of data that it is trained on from internet. A lot of it is curated, labeled. And what these generative models do that internally, they kind of start to map out those data into different space of adjacency. And now when you ask it a question, give it a prompt, using that as a context, these models are very, very good in predicting what the next token or the word is going to be that will start to complete the sequence. And then you can tell that how many of these tokens you want to generate. So basically you can say generate 20,000 tokens, right? So underneath, and then it will write you an essay of what you said. It's the kind of thing. So that's the revolution we are talking about. And this is in a nutshell different categories of artificial intelligence.
And so obviously, to go from there, you think about what is artificial intelligence capable of doing. You can see that with all the capabilities, the importance of how do we control and make sure that something doesn't get out of control, right? That's a lot of questions that people ask us. What happens if AI does something it shouldn't? So when we talk about governance, what examples or what can you think of when we talk about governance that would help our audience understand what type of governance really is needed when it comes to overseeing AI in this respect?
Yes, I can take that, and Lalit, you can jump in as well. But I'd like to start off by saying governance is extremely key when we talk about generative AI, because we're now in a situation where AI is making decisions or suggestions or recommendations. And especially if we're thinking about utilizing this technology in highly regulated industries like healthcare or financial services or pharma or life sciences, it is extremely important that the data or the information that generative AI model or chatbot or tool that you're using is accurate. If you're using generative AI for HR use case, for example, for recruiting or for some sort of performance management tool, it is extremely important that information is not, that it is fair, that there is no bias in that information. And again, if you, in a healthcare situation, data must be HIPAA compliant. It must be private. It must be secure. So it is extremely important, and it's why we designed a responsible AI framework for healthcare, because of the stakes that are at play when you're using a tool like generative AI, and patients are depending on that output. So our framework and governance model looks at governance throughout the entire life cycle of developing a solution using generative AI. And so if you think about the design, the development, and the ongoing use of that tool, it needs to be governed from the top to the bottom, not in one period of time, but throughout the entire life cycle. And with use cases that are this critical, humans must absolutely be in the loop. We do not believe that the technology is in a place where it can be utilized unsupervised. So that's why we look at governance as something that is happening continuously throughout the process and the life cycle of a tool.
I would also add that the compute environment is also very complicated these days. It's hybrid on-prem or initial cloud usage that adds to the complexity. So I cannot emphasize enough the importance of AI governance and some of the principles, core principles that you must stick to.
So really, it sounds like it's kind of balancing the innovation, the capabilities, along with kind of managing and making sure that you have the proper controls in place, you minimize risk, those types of things. That's really good. So with that, can you tell us a little bit about how Unique Minds is helping organizations with governance for artificial intelligence?
Yeah, absolutely. So Matt, what we are offering, one of the core services is the responsible AI framework for healthcare. We call it RAFH, which is our patent pending product right now. this is a framework that initially ensures that until an organization has a proper governance in place, it kind of bootstraps the governance process. And this helps organizations to develop the solutions responsible by design. There are 9 different tenets that we have under this framework. And Andrea already talked about those: fit for use, fairness and non-discrimination, security, privacy, data privacy. So that way, our framework looks at these different dimensions and then make a recommendation to the teams that what they need to do where they are scoring low on our RAFH index, uh, where they are performing poorly, and then give them a full-blown project plan that they can use to implement those changes and make sure that their responsible intelligence is in compliance with the regulatory bodies your own internal standards. So that's how we are helping our clients on all of these dimensions.
That's great. That's great. And so with that, you typically go in and help the customer or the organization understand how to set up, and then do they kind of run with it from there, or do they kind of rely on you to help them through that process?
They rely on us. We take them through several steps. We start off with the discovery and current state assessment of their environment, of the organization's use, and the different use cases and KPIs that they are trying to attain, because it is very important not to just use generative AI without having a true use case behind it, right? So that's the first step. And then understanding just the knowledge space of their employee base. Are their employees ready for using generative AI as another digital tool? And especially if we're working with an organization who's asking for agentic AI, that takes a whole different step for us. We take them through our mind shift process, which is our AI organizational change management framework, because at that point, your organization is now working with what some companies call digital workforce equivalents, right? So how do you optimize your employees by bringing in agentic AI? And how does that change the way work gets done? So that's where we start. Models drift. So we are still there continuously helping the organization. Use cases change, the technology changes. So we're there with the customer, making sure that they're governing that solution as they're adding more functionality or pushing it to different areas of the business.
That's great. Yeah, and there's so many opportunities, right? And so many organizations need that level of expertise, that understanding, because this is something they probably haven't dealt with before, right? So if it's new to them, they're going to need somebody to help with that. And so we obviously here at Simply Smart have a number of customers that could really use that type of walkthrough, understanding, kind of oversight, while they're also trying to build out, their digital assistants or whatever they might be doing. So I think that's really good. I like how you walk them through that and kind of guide them to make sure they're doing it and have the best practices in place, because a lot of times that's not always the case in an organization. So
how Unique Minds and Simply Smart can help an organization, because now we're talking about generative AI and intelligent automation. I think the audience would love to hear how two powerful technologies together can really help them as they're thinking about their product roadmap.
By joining hands between these two domains, RPA and generative AI, or even the traditional deep learning predictive models.
Yeah, that's a great point. And we've talked about before, right, Andrea, where we've said one example would be one practical example might be the having like a document manager, right? That as you get documents that come in, AI can sort through the documents. It can figure out, is this an invoice, or is this a legal document needing to go to the legal department? Does this need to go off for somebody to sign? Those types of things, and triage it right to the right area. And that's the power of, just one small example of where AI can really help drive that. And then on the back end, to Lalit's point, you could have the bot do the type of intelligent automation where it picks up that information and now knows, okay, I'm supposed to go into these applications and do these activities, right? Or work with a human and have the human in the loop aspect where it's feeding information and getting all of that data entered into the right system. So the power of all of that coming together is pretty amazing. And that's just one example. So there's a lot of examples you could probably go into.
Thanks for listening to the Simply Smart podcast. If you're ready to work smarter, not harder, visit simplysmart.io or our LinkedIn page to speak with a team member. See you next time.